What's up, everyone? Tony from the Cold Case Project, back again. And today, what I want to run with you over is all content shared in these videos is readily available in any Google search. Now, with that said, I take this content, have it rewritten, and upon rewriting it, put it in these videos to spread the word on the thousands and thousands of cold cases of men and women throughout the United States that are just forgotten, and I give this platform to them so their cases and their stories can be told. Now, in addition to that, if you look down below in the description, you're going to see some brand new t-shirt and coffee cup designs I've actually gotten from a couple of my subscribers who have over the years have been giving me some awesome fan art. So with that said, I'm offering a 20% discount code down below if you check that out, and splitting proceeds with them because they are awesome. Been watching me for quite some time, and I definitely think they deserve to be rewarded for some of the work they do on top of being full-time employees also. So once again, if you have any recommendations or any suggestions, comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the video. Like, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.
On January 8, 1984, Sandra K. Ross, a 31-year-old nurse and mother from Apex, North Carolina, vanished without a trace. Her disappearance remains one of the most baffling cold cases in Wake County history. Despite extensive searches, media coverage, and a $10,000 reward for information, no definitive leads have ever emerged. Sandra's case is particularly haunting because of the complete lack of evidence. No signs of a struggle, no witnesses, and no indication that she intended to leave her family. Decades later, her loved ones still seek answers. What happened to Sandra Ross on that cold January afternoon? Sandra K. Randall was born on August 4, 1952, and grew up to become a dedicated medical professional. At the time of her disappearance, she worked as the supervisor of the blood bank at Rex Hospital in Raleigh, North Carolina. She was described by colleagues and family as responsible, caring, and deeply devoted to her 15-month-old daughter, Jennifer. Sandra was married to Robert Ross, a financial aid officer at Central Carolina Technical Institute in Sanford. By all accounts, the couple had a stable marriage and no known financial troubles. Friends and relatives insisted that Sandra would never abandon her child, making her sudden disappearance all the more suspicious. On the morning of January 8th, Sandra and Robert's daughter was sick, requiring medication. Around noon, Sandra left their Apex home in her 1976 Chevrolet Chevelle, telling her husband she was going to a nearby pharmacy, likely located in the Cary Village Mall. When Sandra failed to return after an hour, Robert grew concerned. He bundled up their daughter and drove to the mall, where he made a chilling discovery. Sandra's car was parked in the lot, but she was nowhere to be found. A quick search of nearby stores yielded no clues. No one remembered seeing her that day. Robert immediately contacted authorities, but he was initially told he had to wait 24 hours before filing a missing person report. Frustrated, he continued searching on his own before returning home. The next day, after Sandra still hadn't returned, law enforcement officially launched an investigation. The Wake County Sheriff's Office and Cary Police Department conducted extensive searches around the mall, but no evidence was found. There were no signs of struggle in or near Sandra's car, no fingerprints belonging to strangers, and no receipts indicating she had entered any stores. A week after her disappearance, authorities set up roadblocks at all 7 entrances of the Cary Village Mall, questioning nearly 800 people. No witnesses came forward with useful information. Despite the lack of evidence, investigators quickly ruled out the possibility that Sandra had left voluntarily. Friends, family, and coworkers all insisted that abandoning her child was unthinkable for her. Robert Ross believed from the beginning that his wife had been abducted. Detectives, while cautious, acknowledged the case was suspicious. With no leads, investigators even considered consulting a psychic, a rare move that underscored their desperation. A helicopter search of the area on January 16, 1984, also turned up nothing. By late January, Sandra's family and friends had raised a $10,000 reward for information. Despite widespread publicity, the only responses were hoax calls. A year later, the reward was withdrawn. In March 1984, 2 months after Sandra's disappearance, 2 separate attacks on women occurred in Cary. 1. March 2, 1984, a woman was carjacked at knife point, driven to a rural area, and sexually assaulted by 2 men. 2. March 3, 1984, another woman was approached by a knife-wielding man in a different shopping center, but escaped unharmed. Police released sketches of the suspects, but never identified them. While detectives couldn't confirm a connection to Sandra's case, they didn't rule it out. Robert spent years searching for his wife, distributing flyers, and pleading for information. He eventually moved to Greensboro and remarried in 1991, though he never stopped wondering what happened to Sandra. In a 1998 interview, Sandra's mother, Lucille Randall, hinted that something was amiss in Sandra's life before she vanished. "It was something in her life," she said. "She did tell me a little something the last time I saw her." However, she refused to elaborate, leaving investigators and the public to speculate. Some possible theories include 1. Abduction by a stranger, given the lack of evidence. Some believe Sandra was abducted from the parking lot by someone who left no trace. The 1984 attacks on other women suggest a possible serial predator. 2. Involvement of someone she knew. Sandra's mother's vague comments raised questions about whether someone in her life, a co-worker, acquaintance, or even her husband, may have been involved. However, no evidence has ever pointed to Robert Ross or anyone else. 3. Voluntary disappearance. Given Sandra's close bond with her daughter and stable career, few believe she left willingly. 4. Connection to her work as a blood bank supervisor. Sandra handled sensitive medical information. Could her job have put her in danger? No evidence supports this theory, but it remains a remote possibility. Sandra's case was entered into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System in 2009. Despite periodic media coverage, no breakthroughs have occurred. If you have information, contact the Wake County Sheriff's Office at 856-6800. For most teenagers, spending time with parents is something to avoid. But for 17-year-old April Hart of Ashe County, North Carolina, nothing would mean more than having just one more moment with her mother, a mother who was brutally taken from her when she was just 6 years old. April often wishes she could return to those early childhood days when her mother was still alive and their lives were filled with happiness instead of tragedy. Sherry Elaine Lyall Hart was only 24 years old when she vanished on the night of January 15, 1984. Recently divorced, Sherry had moved back home to West Jefferson, North Carolina with her young daughter, April, to live with her parents. On that fateful evening, Sherry went out to meet a date at a local restaurant. The date never arrived. When Sherry failed to return home that night or the following day, her worried parents reported her missing. Days later, her father made the grim discovery of her abandoned car, still sitting in the restaurant parking lot. Initial police investigations turned up several friends who had seen Sherry that evening, but no signs of foul play. With no clear answers, rumors began to circulate that Sherry had run off to Florida with a lover. Young April grew up hearing these stories, believing her mother had chosen to abandon her. She carried the painful belief that her mother didn't love her anymore. The terrible truth would eventually surface. On December 10, 1984, nearly 11 months after Sherry disappeared, police conducting an unrelated investigation made a horrifying discovery at the base of a 2,000-foot cliff along NC Highway 16, locally known as the jumping-off place. There, among the rocks, lay Sherry's decomposed remains. Dental records confirmed the identity. This discovery reopened the case with new urgency. Investigators soon identified 2 suspects, Jeffrey Scott Burgess and Richard Lynn Bear, both 20 years old and former high school acquaintances of Sherry. Bear's brother had previously dated Sherry, creating a known connection. During separate interrogations, Bear claimed they had dropped Sherry off at her car around 9 p.m. that night, but witness statements placed the trio together much later. It was Burgess who eventually broke during police questioning on March 29, 1985. He revealed the horrific details of Sherry's final hours. According to his confession, he and Bear had picked Sherry up in Bear's white Ford Mustang under the pretense of going to a party. When Sherry asked to stop to use the bathroom, they pulled over near the jumping-off place. As Sherry returned from the woods, Bear aggressively made sexual advances, grabbing and trying to kiss her despite her repeated rejections. When Sherry broke free and ran to Burgess for help, Bear, armed with a handgun, struck her viciously in the head before forcing her back into the car. They drove to a spot near the Moonshine Inn bar, where Bear dragged the bleeding Sherry out of the vehicle. In a final act of brutality, he hauled her to the cliff's edge and pushed her to her death. Burgess later led police to where Sherry's checkbook and other personal items had been discarded along the Blue Ridge Parkway. Both men were arrested on April 1, 1985, and charged with murder. However, justice would be denied when Bear engineered a shocking escape from Wilkes County Jail on July 17, 1985. Taking advantage of an unlocked cell door during visiting hours, Bear slipped away while the jailer's back was turned, hiding in the kitchen before walking out the front door. Some reports suggest Bear's sister may have played a role in the escape by convincing jail staff to look the other way. With Bear now a fugitive, Burgess was released on bail, awaiting his co-defendant's recapture. He would never stand trial for Sherry's murder, instead serving time for unrelated drug offenses before his death in 2012. The search for Bear has spanned decades, with several near misses. In 1993, FBI agents narrowly missed capturing him at a relative's Delaware home. In 2002, authorities pursued a lead that Bear was living under the alias Richard Presnell, but the suspect vanished before identification could be confirmed. Unconfirmed reports suggest Bear may have secretly returned to North Carolina in disguise for family funerals, with some locals believing he may still be living in plain sight in Ashe County. Sherry's mother, Betty Lyall, passed away in 2011 without seeing her daughter's killer brought to justice. She remembered Sherry as a vibrant, loving person who adored her daughter, April, above all else. Now grown with 3 children of her own, Sherry's daughter continues to hope that one day Bear will be found, whether alive or deceased, so that some measure of justice might finally be served. Suspect, Richard Lynn Bear. Description, 5'6" -5'8", 145 to 175 pounds, dark brown hair, green eyes, panther tattoo on right forearm. Distinguishing features, previously had mustache beard. It may even disguise as woman. Known connections, North and South Carolina, Florida, Virginia or West Virginia as of March 2025. He is still listed as a fugitive, with murder charges dismissed without leave in 1994, can be reinstated if captured. A $10,000 reward is available for information leading to capture. This case has been featured on America's Most Wanted and other crime programs. But after nearly 4 decades, Richard Lynn Bear remains at large, one of North Carolina's most elusive killers. Simon's roommate reported him missing on March 19, 2008, but he was last seen 2 days later, was last seen in Fayetteville, North Carolina. At 12:30 p.m. on March 20th, he visited his wife at work. They were separated, but still talked every day. That night, Simon, a cab driver for Landham Taxi Service, called his boss and said he was taking a passenger to Raleigh, North Carolina. Bank records indicate he was still alive between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m. the next day, Friday, March 21st. This was the last sign of him. He has never been heard from again. Simon's cab, a red Ford Crown Victoria with the Landham Taxi Service logo on the doors, was found abandoned Friday evening near a radio tower off Rosser Street in Spring Lake, a town near Fayetteville. His family Bible was on the front seat of the cab. His loved ones stated he's very religious and would have taken the Bible with him if he'd left of his own accord. A photograph of Simon's cab is posted with this case summary. Simon lived in a mobile home in the 1500 block of Gillespie Street at the time of his disappearance. He is the oldest of 12 children and left behind his wife, one son, 2 grandchildren, and 3 dogs. He is described as a friendly, generous, and dependable man with no enemies, and he had no criminal history or substance abuse problems. Foul play is suspected in his disappearance, which remains unsolved. In the spring of 2008, Gaston County was a community on edge. On April 8th, 22-year-old Jamie Fraley vanished after getting a ride to a local hospital for a severe case of the flu. Flyers were distributed, billboards were put up, and community members did everything possible to find her. Less than 4 weeks later, another woman, Jennifer Ramsey Rivkin, disappeared as well. Jennifer, a 43-year-old mother, singer, songwriter, and hairstylist, grew up in Bessemer City. Her abandoned car was found just miles from where Jamie had vanished. Though no evidence conclusively linked the two cases, the anguish felt by the families formed a tragic bond. This is the story of Jennifer Ramsey Rivkin's disappearance. Jennifer's parents, Hilda and Clayton Ramsey, raised 3 children: Jennifer, her younger sister Janet, and her brother Jeff. The Ramsey family was close-knit, often taking weekend trips to Lake Norman, where Jennifer and Janet spent their days swimming, water skiing, and soaking in the summer sun. Janet recalls looking up to her sister, who was talented in many ways. Jennifer had a gift with her hands. Whether she was painting, drawing, or styling hair, her creativity always shone through. Jennifer graduated from Bessemer City High School in 1983. She married her first husband and in 1987 gave birth to her son, Marcus. Janet was also pregnant at the time, and their children were born just 5 months apart, growing up more like siblings than cousins. Jennifer pursued her passion for hairstyling, following in her mother's footsteps by attending barber school in Charlotte. She eventually opened her own salon, Jennifer & Company, and spent years building her career in the community. But Jennifer's ambitions weren't limited to hairstyling. She had a deep love for music and songwriting. Her artistic spirit took her to Nashville, Tennessee, where she met her second husband, David Z., a well-known music producer and engineer who had worked with legends like Prince and Etta James. Life in the music industry offered luxury, but it also came with temptations. The glamorous lifestyle and the party scene exacerbated Jennifer's struggles with addiction. Though she attempted to maintain control, those close to her could see the toll it was taking. After divorcing David, Jennifer returned to Gaston County in 2004. Despite the geographical distance, her battle with addiction followed her. Her sister, Janet, remembers how Jennifer kept her family life separate from the crowd she socialized with. Their father continued to support Jennifer financially, paying her bills when she was unable to. Despite multiple attempts to get her professional help, Jennifer resisted. The weight of addiction is heavy, and the path to recovery is seldom straightforward. On May 1st, 2008, Janet saw Jennifer for the last time. Jennifer had visited the family's business, Carolina's Electric Motor Service, in Dallas, North Carolina, and spent hours chatting with her sister. She even mentioned the possibility of returning to Nashville to pursue music again. Just days later, Jennifer left a voicemail for a friend on May 4th. It would be the last time anyone heard from her. On May 6th, her silver BMW was discovered abandoned in the parking lot of the Winner's Circle Bar and Grill in Gastonia. The sunroof was open, and Jennifer's purse, driver's license, makeup bag, and clothing were left inside. Although she had been to the bar before, she wasn't a frequent customer and hadn't signed in on the day of her disappearance. Investigators were left with more questions than answers. Despite the exhaustive efforts of detectives and family members, Jennifer's trail went cold. Her parents, determined to find her, sought the help of retired forensic detective Rita Conley. Rita had spent decades working for the Gastonia Police Department, specializing in evidence collection. After her retirement, she became passionate about cold cases, including Jennifer's. She worked closely with Jennifer's family, searching fields, bridges, and wooded areas for any sign of her. Leads trickled in over the years. Witnesses reported seeing Jennifer getting into a car the night she disappeared, though the vehicle's identity remains unknown. Law enforcement followed every tip, but nothing led to Jennifer's whereabouts. Her case remains a painful mystery. Jennifer's family kept her memory alive through annual candlelight vigils. In 2018, 10 years after her disappearance, they gathered once again, holding on to hope that answers would come. Clayton Ramsey passed away in 2021 without ever knowing what happened to his daughter. Jennifer's mother, Hilda, had also passed before seeing any resolution. Janet continues to search for answers, driven by the belief that Jennifer deserves to be found. Gaston County Police Detective Jimmy Art acknowledges the challenges of the case. Despite Jennifer's struggles, those who knew her emphasize her kind spirit, her love for her family, and her dedication to her son. She was a person, a human being, a mother, a sister, a daughter, an aunt, and a friend, Janet said. She had a lot of people who still miss and love her. Authorities urge anyone with information about Jennifer Ramsey Rivkin's disappearance to come forward. Even the smallest detail could lead to closure for her family. If you have any information, please contact the Gastonia Police Department at 866-6702. Alex Shaw's green 1972 Buick was found smashed into a pine tree off Highway 40 in Wagram, North Carolina, on March 15, 1982. There was no sign of him at the accident scene. The car keys remained in the ignition, and the headlights were still on when investigators located the vehicle. During the suspected time of Shaw's accident, the Wagram area experienced heavy rainfall, which may have contributed to the crash. Despite the unsettling scene, 2 witnesses reported seeing Shaw walking along the highway south of Wagram the day after the accident. However, he has never been heard from again. An extensive search of the surrounding area, involving the National Guard, the Army, and local law enforcement, yielded no sign of him. Shaw had a diverse employment background, having worked in theater, mobile home service, broadcast advertising sales, and industrial wastewater plant operations. He was also a dedicated distance runner and frequently donated blood to the American Red Cross. Known as a casual dresser, Shaw's appearance was unassuming and familiar to those who knew him. Investigators do not believe Shaw was carrying any identification or jewelry at the time of his disappearance. His father, who held on to the belief that Shaw may have suffered a head injury in the accident and developed amnesia, passed away in 2010 without receiving any closure. Over the years, Shaw's case has remained a mystery. The unsettling lack of evidence has left his loved ones grappling with unanswered questions. Though decades have passed, the hope for answers endures. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Alex Shaw, please contact the appropriate authorities. Sherry Lynn Ross was last seen in West End, North Carolina, at 7 a.m. on July 8, 1995. She has never been heard from again. After her disappearance, her husband, Brooks Gordon Ross, allegedly told a neighbor, "If anybody asks, my wife ran off with a drug dealer." Her family, deeply concerned about her sudden vanishing, reported her missing 3 weeks later. Sherry's loved ones describe her as a caring and devoted mother, and they find it impossible to believe she would have willingly abandoned her family. Her second husband, Brooks, soon became a person of interest in her disappearance. Described by Sherry's family as controlling and manipulative, Brooks was known to be a habitual liar. Family members have also indicated that he attempted to isolate Sherry from her mother, further raising suspicions. According to Sherry's mother, their relationship had become severely strained in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Sherry had recently discovered that Brooks had been unfaithful, and she was furious. Friends and family members reported witnessing heated arguments between the couple, with Sherry voicing her frustration and contemplating her next steps. Despite her growing unhappiness, Sherry had made no indication that she intended to disappear, leaving her loved ones to believe that something sinister may have occurred. Brooks Ross has never been charged in connection to Sherry's disappearance. However, his criminal past paints a troubling picture. In 1996, just 1 year after Sherry vanished, Brooks pleaded guilty to bigamy, as it was revealed he had married Sherry without legally divorcing his previous wife. This blatant disregard for legal boundaries only further fueled suspicions surrounding his involvement in Sherry's case. Then, in 2018, Brooks was convicted of a heinous crime unrelated to Sherry's disappearance. He pleaded guilty to an offense involving a child and received a prison sentence ranging from 18 to 22 years. This shocking conviction only intensified the lingering doubts about Brooks' potential role in Sherry's fate. Despite the passage of time, Sherry's family remains determined to uncover the truth. They have tirelessly sought answers, working with law enforcement and raising awareness about her case. Over the years, countless searches and investigations have yielded no conclusive evidence, and Sherry's fate remains a mystery. Investigators strongly suspect foul play due to the suspicious circumstances surrounding Sherry's disappearance. While Brooks remains a person of interest, no charges have been filed against him in connection to the case. Authorities continue to urge anyone with information to come forward, holding on to the hope that one day, Sherry's family will receive the closure they desperately seek. If you have any information about the disappearance of Sherry Lynn Ross, please contact the appropriate law enforcement agency. James Martin Roberts, a 19-year-old student from Kernersville, North Carolina, vanished without a trace on April 21, 2016, in Boone, North Carolina. His disappearance has left investigators puzzled and his family desperate for answers. Roberts was last seen walking away from the Apple Cart bus stop at the intersection of River Street and Blowing Rock Road, near Appalachian State University's Holmes Convocation Center. At the time of his disappearance, Roberts was attending Caldwell Community College and Technical Institute and living in an off-campus apartment on King Street with 3 fraternity brothers from Tau Kappa Epsilon. His academic journey had been somewhat turbulent. After initially enrolling at Appalachian State University following high school, he took a semester off to work and regroup before returning to school at the community college to improve his grades. The circumstances surrounding Roberts' disappearance are particularly perplexing. His last known communication was a phone conversation with his father several days before he vanished. During this call, Roberts appeared in good spirits, discussing his plans to return to ASU in the fall and mentioning new living arrangements. He promised to speak with his father again in a few days, but never made that call and stopped responding to text messages. When Roberts failed to respond to his father's attempts at contact, concern grew. His father reached out to the landlord, who then contacted Roberts' roommates. What they discovered was alarming. Roberts wasn't in his room, and he had left behind his cell phone, iPad, laptop, and other personal belongings. Most notably, there was a handwritten note left face down on his bed. The contents of this note have never been made public, but according to Roberts' father, it expressed disappointment in himself for not taking advantage of opportunities and mentioned wanting to start over. Importantly, the note didn't indicate any intention of self-harm, nor was it interpreted as a suicide note by his family. Investigators also found a crumpled earlier draft of this note in the trash, suggesting Roberts had carefully considered his words. Several puzzling details emerged in the investigation. Roberts had gone grocery shopping with a friend just 2 days before disappearing, yet his refrigerator was completely empty when his roommates checked. He was last seen carrying a backpack that didn't appear to contain survival gear or enough supplies for an extended trip. His bank account showed minimal activity and no large withdrawals. His real ID was missing. Though a fake ID was found in his room, the search for Roberts was extensive and immediate. Boone Police issued a reverse 911 call to area property owners, conducted helicopter searches with infrared technology, checked local swimming holes and hiking trails, investigated homeless shelters and off-grid communities, followed up on numerous potential sightings. One particularly intriguing aspect of the case involves Robert's behavior in the weeks before his disappearance. Investigators discovered that he had frequent periods where he would tell different friend groups he was with other friends when he wasn't. Lavino electronic trail during these absences offer varying explanations for his whereabouts, adding to the mystery. Roberts had recently searched online about joining the military and physical training to prepare for military service. This has led to speculation that he may have attempted to enlist, though military records show no evidence of this. Theories about Roberts' disappearance include 1. Intentional disappearance to start a new life. 2. Suicide in a remote location. 3. Accident or misadventure while hiking. 4. Foul play despite extensive searches and investigations. No conclusive evidence has been found to determine what happened to James Martin Roberts. His case remains open, and his family continues to hope for answers. Anyone with information is encouraged to contact the Boone Police Department. Physical description at time of disappearance. Age: 19 years old. Height: approximately 5 feet 10 inches. Weight: approximately 160 pounds. Hair: brown. Eyes: blue. Last seen wearing black t-shirt, Appalachian State windbreaker, khaki pants, and a white golf visor. The disappearance of James Martin Roberts represents one of Boone's most perplexing missing persons cases. With no clear evidence of foul play, but also no indication that Roberts had the means or preparation to disappear intentionally, investigators continue to search for answers that might bring closure to his family. Isabelle Palacios was last seen at Gregory Kent Parks' home on Ward Boulevard in Wilson, North Carolina, in the early morning hours of July 31st, 2015. The 20-year-old mother had been spending time with Parks and others, and her final known interactions paint a grim picture of her final hours. A friend of Palacios, Ronald Thomas Parker, went to Parks' home between 3 o'clock and 5 a.m. to see her. Palacios asked Parker to leave and return later. She eventually called him back between 5 o'clock and 6 a.m., inviting him to return. Upon his arrival, Parker observed Parks and Palacios smoking crack cocaine. Parker spent some time at the residence before leaving. Later that day, at 2:46 p.m., Parker received a chilling phone call from Palacios' cell phone. When he answered, he heard Palacios screaming, "Help me! Help me! He's hurting me!" In the background, he heard a voice, presumed to be Parks, calmly saying, "We're just playing. She's okay." Despite this reassurance, Parker was alarmed. Fearing for Palacios' safety, Parker and his cousin went back to Parks' home before 5:50 p.m. Her car remained parked in the driveway. However, Parks refused to let them inside, claiming Palacios had left with some Mexican guys. Suspicious, Parker and his cousin walked around the exterior of the house. Through a bedroom window, they saw shattered glass and what appeared to be blood smeared on a curtain. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, they immediately called the police at 5:52 p.m. When officers arrived, they conducted an initial search of the residence. Despite the alarming evidence, Palacios was nowhere to be found. Later that evening, a welfare check was performed at the residence, but investigators were still unable to locate her. Palacios' family and friends never saw or heard from her again. Gregory Kent Parks quickly became the prime suspect, a true menace to society who never should have been out of jail in the first place. Parks' extensive criminal history raised further concerns. With a record including convictions for manslaughter and attempted rape, and over 100 arrests since 1983, Parks' violent tendencies were well known. He claimed Palacios had spent the night at his house and left the next day, leaving her vehicle behind because she couldn't find her car keys. On August 4th, police executed a search warrant at Parks' home. Inside, they uncovered damning evidence. Blood matching Palacios' DNA was discovered in numerous locations: on a lamp, a bath mat, a candlestick, the master bedroom's wall and doorway, and even the deadbolt lock of the bedroom door. Investigators also found a large blood stain, approximately a foot in diameter, on carpet padding that had been discarded in the trash. The volume of blood suggested Palacios suffered a severe injury and would have required medical attention to survive. Despite Parks's denial of wrongdoing, investigators concluded that Palacios had been violently attacked. Based on the evidence, it was believed Parks beat her to death after she rejected his sexual advances. 3 weeks after Palacios' disappearance, Parks was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and first-degree kidnapping. Throughout the investigation and trial, he maintained his innocence. In November 2017, Gregory Kent Parks was convicted on both charges and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, the story did not end there. In 2019, authorities charged Parks with first-degree murder and first-degree rape in connection with the 1984 death of 13-year-old Marcia Anita Whitted. DNA evidence linked Parks to that decades-old crime, further solidifying his violent past. Isabelle Palacios left behind a young daughter. Her family, especially her mother, firmly believes she would never have abandoned her child voluntarily. The tragic loss of Palacios has left a lasting impact on her loved ones, who continue to grieve her absence. If you have any knowledge on Isabelle or her whereabouts, contact the Wilson Police Department at 252-399-2323. Pretty Ashley Porter, who went by her middle name Ashley, was last seen in Gastonia, North Carolina on the evening of April 19, 2009. She lived with her mother, Tanya, and her stepfather on Windy Hill Drive. That day, after attending church and having dinner with her family, Ashley spent time on the internet, browsing MySpace and chatting with her friends, which was a common pastime during that era. Later that evening, she went to visit a neighbor to talk and catch up. At around 10 p.m., Ashley returned home, said good night to her mother, and retreated to her bedroom. Tanya recalled nothing unusual about that night and went to bed peacefully, believing her daughter was safe and sound just a room away. However, the next morning, Tanya went to Ashley's room to retrieve a coat from her closet. Upon finding the bedroom door locked, she knocked several times. When there was no response, her stepfather helped her unlock the door. What they found inside was chilling. Ashley was gone. The bedroom window screen was missing, and all of her personal belongings, including her purse, cell phone, clothes, and money, were left behind. It appeared as though Ashley had climbed out of her bedroom window in the middle of the night. Tanya initially believed that Ashley had sneaked out to meet someone and had planned to return shortly. Her concern grew as the hours passed, but she held on to the hope that Ashley would come home. Days turned into weeks, and by April 27th, 8 days after Ashley was last seen, her mother reported her missing. One concerning aspect of Ashley's life was her tumultuous relationship with an ex-boyfriend. According to Tanya, this ex-boyfriend was abusive and manipulative, leading to a ban from their home. Due to the strained relationship, it was speculated that he might have come to Ashley's window that night, knowing he wasn't welcome through the front door. Tanya suspected he might have persuaded Ashley to leave with him, whether willingly or under duress. However, this ex-boyfriend has never been publicly identified, and his role in Ashley's disappearance remains uncertain. Authorities have not disclosed many details regarding the investigation, citing the need to preserve its integrity. The Gastonia Police Department initially labeled Ashley's disappearance as a missing person case, but as time passed and no credible leads emerged, they began to suspect foul play. Ashley Porter was a bright and vibrant young woman. She graduated from Ashburg High School in 2007 and worked in various manufacturing jobs. Her family described her as well-behaved and responsible. She wasn't known to engage in heavy drinking or drug use, nor had she ever been in trouble with the law. Despite the challenges in her personal life, Ashley was deeply loved by her family. Her mother remembers her as a caring daughter with a radiant smile and a kind heart. Ashley's niece, who was just a child at the time of her disappearance, grew up with fond memories of her aunt. Tanya has since turned Ashley's old bedroom into a playroom for her granddaughter, a bittersweet reminder of Ashley's absence. Several theories have emerged in the years since Ashley vanished. One possibility is that she left voluntarily, planning to return home, but encountering danger. However, the fact that she left all of her belongings behind casts doubt on this theory. Most individuals who plan to run away take essential items like money, identification, and personal effects. Ashley took nothing. Another theory is that she was coerced or forced to leave. Her family has pointed to the abusive ex-boyfriend as a potential suspect. It is plausible that he lured her out, possibly under the pretense of wanting to talk or reconcile. Given the volatile nature of their past relationship, there is speculation that things may have escalated, leading to Ashley's disappearance. There is also the grim possibility that Ashley encountered someone else that night, an unknown individual who took advantage of her vulnerability. Without concrete evidence, law enforcement has struggled to piece together the events of that evening. For Tanya, the pain of not knowing what happened to her daughter is unbearable. She has repeatedly stated that she just wants closure, a place to visit Ashley, to mourn, and to keep her memory alive. The uncertainty has left the family in a state of suspended grief. "We just want to know something," Tanya said. "If she's no longer with us in the world, I want a place to visit her and have a proper place for her to be." Despite the years that have passed, Tanya continues to hold out hope that answers will come. She believes that someone in the community knows what happened to Ashley and urges them to come forward. Law enforcement also continues to seek tips from the public in the hopes of finally solving the case. At the time of her disappearance, Ashley Porter was 22 years old. She is an African-American woman with black hair and brown eyes, standing at 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighing approximately 150 pounds. She was possibly wearing a black t-shirt with the words, "Put a ring on it," jeans, gray sneakers, a 14-karat gold necklace with her name pretty on it, and a second 14-karat gold necklace with a heart pendant. Ashley occasionally wore glasses, but they were left behind. She also has a burn scar on her left hand between her thumb and forefinger, as well as a small mole in the middle of her forehead. If alive, Ashley would now be 37 years old. Anyone with information about Ashley Porter's disappearance is encouraged to contact the Gastonia Police Department at 704-866-6879. Even the smallest piece of information could provide the breakthrough her family desperately needs.